We will go ahead and get started. I'm so happy to see so many of you here today. This is really great. Welcome everyone. I'm Brielle Ferguson. I'm Director of Programs for Black and Neuro, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Stanford University. We're just so excited to be able to offer this workshop. Securing NIH funding can be such an important career step, but sometimes navigating NIH can be challenging. I know when I was a graduate student, and real talk, even now as a postdoc, there are definitely times that I can find it overwhelming. So today, we're so happy to have a panel of experts here today to really tell you about all of the ins and outs. So today, you'll be hearing from James D. Churchill, who is Senior Advisor to the Director of NIMH, Michelle Jones-London, Chief of the Office of Programs to Enhance Neuroscience Workforce Diversity at NINDS. We have Marguerite Matthews, Scientific Program Manager at the Office of Programs to Enhance Neuroscience Workforce Diversity, Lauren Ulrich, Program Director at the Office of Programs to Enhance Neuroscience Workforce Diversity, and Ashley Vant Veer, who's Director of the Office of Research Training and Career Development in the Division of Neuroscience and Basic Behavioral Science at NIMH. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for partnering with us to do this webinar today. One of the themes that we always say is that we spend a lot of energy and time creating what we hope are innovative programs to support you and to get you to that next stage in your career development and to help you to succeed. But if we build it and you don't come, it's a waste. And so hopefully today we can give you the tools and the conversation that you need to help you to apply for some of what we think are some terrific mechanisms. In terms of the way that we'll handle today, I'll be very brief, although I love chatting about these programs. I'll be very brief and give you an overview of the NIH blueprint and brain training mechanisms. We'll note that today we're trying to think about a conversation that would be broad neuroscience. So not talking about just one institute, but talking about the collaborative efforts of the NIH Blueprint, which is a collaborative effort of 14 different neuroscience institutes, and then also the BRAIN Initiative, a specific initiative within NIH that is focused on looking at tools developed, circuits, all around the hope of advancing the discoveries of understanding the brain. So that's what we'll do first, very brief look at that. Then we'll go to frequently asked questions from the panelists of the NIH staff that we have today, and then also an open discussion from the audience. And so for this portion, you'll know that everyone is muted. We have a large number of people, and so we want to make sure everyone can hear everything. But once we get to those points, please start, you can start putting your questions in the chat now as we talk about the mechanisms, but then also we will allow you to unmute yourself and ask your specific question. So without further ado, let me show you the programs that we currently have in the NIH Blueprint and BRAIN Initiative. As you can see, it really goes across the span of career stages, looking at all the way through the diversity supplement program that I'll talk about, that it allows high school students all the way to new faculty programs. One of the programs that we're really excited at the NIH currently is an NIH Common Fund First program, and that's bringing in faculty hires as cohorts. The institution would apply to that, but that's something to be on the lookout for if you yourself are junior faculty. The fact that there is this NIH effort in terms of hiring diverse faculty cohorts at various institutions across the nation. And so if we go back to the first of the timeline, we have the Blueprint Endure program, which I saw a couple of familiar names and alumni of that investment. That's where we provide opportunities for undergraduates to get research exposure during the academic year, but also the summer for 2 years, with hopefully the goal of going on to graduate school. We have a success rate of about 65%, so that's a very active program. An institutional program that you see in the aqua is the Blueprint jointly sponsored T32. Once again, that's a program that an institution would have, but it would be good to know you as a trainee can look at universities or institutions that actually are part of this T32. We'll talk about the brain F32, so I won't say much there. And we'll also talk about the blueprint brain F99K00, which we affectionately call the D-SPAN. And then as we move up the ladder, the program that we have for faculty, or actually postdoc to faculty transition, is the brain K99R00. So this just gives you a picture of, no matter where you're at right now in terms of your career stage, you should know that we probably have a mechanism or a program to help you. And if it's not within the NIH blueprint or the BRAIN initiative, there are also specific NIH institutional programs that can be of interest. So from this slide, you should reach out to your program officer, reach out to the contacts in those funding opportunity announcements, and have conversations about the mechanisms. So for today's highlight, as I said, I'll just go over these few, touching on the first FOA would be the D-SPAN in terms of early career investments. So the F99K00 has an explicit goal of helping advanced stage pre-docs move on to competitive, supportive mentoring environments for their postdoc. And the way that the mechanism works is that you would apply when you have 1 to 2 years left in your research doctoral degree program. And then if successful, you would then have 4 years of funding once again, you identify this competitive postdoc environment. The K00 is administratively reviewed. The F99 goes to a sitting study section. In terms of this program, all of the participating institutes are at the bottom of the slide. And so what you need to know is that often, because this program is housed out of NINDS, people may mistakenly assume it's just NINDS, and it's not. It's really broad neuroscience. And if you happen to be doing neuroscience research in any of these institutes that you see at the bottom, you need to think about, is this a good mechanism for me? Do I see myself staying in academic research? And do I have at least 1 or 2 years left of my dissertation research to be able to apply? In terms of eligibility, it's for such groups as described on the slide, race, ethnicity being underrepresented, but then also persons with disabilities and those from disadvantaged groups. You do have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident, and you must be at a US domestic institution in order to be able to apply. And so at the bottom is the RFA number for this, this program. And so this is pre-doc to postdoc transition. The next program that I'll talk about is the F32, and this is the BRAIN Initiative F32. So anytime you see BRAIN in the title of these FOAs, and that's in capital letters, what that means is that the research must fit the scope of the BRAIN Initiative. And the way that you find that out is you can take a cursory look at the BRAIN Initiative website, but you can also contact us to just ask the question. And the way that you contact us is just sending a few specific aims, maybe your bio sketch, and we'll help you figure that out. So with regards to the BRAIN F32, this is a great program. It's for those who are in their postdoctoral fellowships. And you can have no more than 12 months of postdoctoral training. Why this is a really great program is because it gets you into the funding stream really early. You're not really judged on pilot data because you don't have enough time for that yet, but it's identifying the research concepts that you have in the mentor. And Dr. Ashley Vanthier, who's on this call, runs this program, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in more detail. But here, once again, you do need to be a US citizen or a permanent resident. For many that have timed out of the D-SPAN in terms of having enough time left to apply for that, we often recommend thinking about the F32 as another option. As we go up the career ladder, now we're talking about a person who has been in their postdoc and is also thinking about transitioning to a career as a faculty member in academia. And this is the BRAIN K99R00. Here we'll note, once again, because of the diversity language, the same US citizen or permanent resident language, but this is different. I know we have a couple of people on the webinar that happen to be international trainees or faculty. What you need to know is that for the general K99R00, that is open to all. And you can consider that if you do not have citizenship or permanent residency. There are also programs at Fogarty, and Lauren will put that in the chat, that you could think about applying for if you don't have citizenship or permanent residency. But for this BRAIN K99R00, the eligibility is that you have to be less than 5 years in your postdoctoral experience. That's a little bit different than the general K99 where it's 4 years. For this one, it's 5 years. And you have to have a requirement of 1 to 2 years of additional training or finishing up this postdoc. The award gives you this R00 if you receive it, and there the R00 would be activated once you get a tenure track or equivalent position. But it's a really powerful mechanism to help you be competitive and also empower you to ask for and get the startup and the support, because NIH staff is involved in terms of helping you negotiate and get the requirements that you need to actually be able to transition. And then the final program in the BRAIN and the blueprint mechanisms that I'll highlight is the BRAIN Initiative Diversity Supplements. And what I'll say here is I'm talking about it within the aspect of the BRAIN Initiative, but the reality is that all NIH institutes have the diversity supplement program. And once again, therefore, if you don't fit the BRAIN Initiative research areas, all is not lost. You can think about applying for the diversity supplement with a committed mentor to another IC. One of the requirements is that the mentor has to have a parent grant with the IC, and when we say parent grant, that could be an R01, a U01, a P01, some type of grant that is funded by NIH. And the goals here are to bring you into that research environment, or perhaps you're already there, but really give you the mentoring, the training plan and the research development for you to have a really authentic research experience, gain preliminary data and other requirements to then maybe go on and apply for your own individual award. Often what we see at our institute is, say, if you're a pre-doc, the mentor maybe in your second year or so, you'll apply for the diversity supplement, work on that, get that pilot data, and then turn that around into you submitting your own individual F31, or hopefully maybe even your own individual F99K00. So if you're thinking about doing this for the BRAIN Initiative, you would put that notice number that we have on the slide in there. That just lets them know that it's, you're being responsive to the BRAIN Initiative. But if not, like I said, you can just always look on the NIH webpage and look for the diversity supplement FOA, and you'll see specific IC contacts that you can reach out to about applying for this program, which is often used as a bridge to these individual Fs, Ks. And even if you're more of a junior faculty person, sometimes a leverage to your own R21 or R01. And so I'll end with an acknowledgement to the BRAIN Initiative Investigators meeting that's coming up. Important for you to know that you don't have to currently be doing BRAIN Initiative research to feel welcome to this community, or if you're thinking about, hey, I'm a pre-doc, but for my postdoc, I'm thinking about doing this work, it could be a great meeting for you to attend, and it's free for all. And so these are the dates and the registration link. We could put that in the chat as well. And then, specifically for the office that I oversee, wanted to share some contacts and information that later on you can follow up with us. It's a lot of information, and we'll have even more information that you'll get through these conversations. But if you want to reach out to us after this, we're on all types of platforms. And additionally, I have to always give a shout out to this NPR Quality Like podcast that Dr. Ulrich and Dr. Matthews have put together. It's really good as a primer in terms of understanding the ins and outs of grant mechanisms, all the way from the time you're thinking about an application to the time you submit. And they also have a season 2. So I don't know if I stayed to time, but I think I got a lot of information in there for you. We're going to ask you now to, please put your questions in the chat. I'll turn this off so I can see everyone. And then we'll start with, many of you were kind enough to put some of the questions in the registration. So we'll start with a few of those, and then we'll open it up more broadly, okay? The first question I believe I have is about the diversity supplements. Can I receive a diversity supplement if I have previously been on a training grant? And I'll take that to Dr. Matthews.
Yes, you can. If you've been on a training grant, or if you've been paid by your mentor's research grant or any other institutional grant. If you've had a fellowship award, though, this is especially for pre-docs, if you've had the F31 or even an F30, depending on what type of institution, you would not qualify for a diversity supplement. But you can have a diversity supplement at every stage of your career. So you can have it as an undergraduate, you can have it again as a pre-doc, you can have it again as a postdoc, you can have it as an investigator. So having a diversity supplement once does not preclude you from other diversity supplements, and it does not preclude you from applying for other grants. It's actually encouraged. We actually hope that you do apply for a fellowship award, or you might get moved to a training grant. That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. This is about the D-SPAN. Can I apply if I'm in my 5th year? Let's give that to Lauren.
Yes, of course. So the main requirement for the D-SPAN award is that you need to have 1 to 2 years left in your graduate work at time of award. And so generally this means about 1.5 years left at time of application. And we understand that things happen, life happens. Maybe you had to switch labs, maybe you had to switch institutions, maybe COVID severely disrupted your ability to collect your data, and so that you aren't able to apply or not really in a position to apply until your 5th year. And so that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're not eligible, but you should explain in your application the reasons why you still need 1 year, 2.5 years, 1.5 years, whatever it is, left in your application. I mean, that's for anyone, right? So no matter what you're applying in, you should explain in your application why you need the time that you're asking for and what you're going to do during that time.
Thank you. This one is for the Brain F32. I don't have preliminary data. Should I wait to apply for the F32?
So I think Michelle touched on this a little bit, but the Brain F32 is really targeting early stage postdocs, and preliminary data are not required or expected in the application. We really want individuals to apply early in their postdoc training, or I mean, even better, while you're still a pre-doc. So you can apply as a pre-doc if you're expecting to graduate in about a year, because we can't make an award until you finish your PhD. But the review and award process takes quite some time. So if you expect that it's going to be 9 months from when you submit the application until it's funded, that means if you have about 1 year left to finish your PhD, that would be a good time to put in an application and have funding secured for as soon as you start your postdoctoral position. And in that case, obviously you will not have preliminary data because you haven't even joined the lab yet. But Instead, what's important is that you address technical feasibility and provide some documentation about previously published work that supports the proposed project and technical approaches and potential pitfalls and alternative approaches. So all demonstrating how you can still be successful in the project without, having begun any work yet.
Okay, so that's great. This one is about the Brain K99. We'll ask this of Jay. Does the mentor need to have brain funding for me as the applicant to be competitive or to even apply for the Brain K99?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I'm going to say absolutely not. Your mentor does not have to have money from the Brain Initiative for you to apply for the K99. Certainly your mentor needs to have the resources to support your efforts, and typically this requires some funds, but we really don't care where that money comes from. It's not a score driving factor. The review panel will look at the suitability of your mentor or your mentoring team in the context of evaluating the environment. But that evaluation also considers factors such as the training plan and the environment and the institutional commitment and the likelihood that you'll actually be ready to transition to independence within that 2-year K99 period. But your mentor does not have to have brain money in order for you to submit an application.
Okay. We'll go back around unless, did anybody see anything in the chat that we should address?
We've got a ton of questions in the chat.
Yeah. All right. So
some have been answered already. I don't know, Lauren, have you been keeping track? I'm trying to.
Yes. Okay. So we have one pretty straightforward question. So in what year in your pre-doc are you eligible to apply for an NRSA?
So it doesn't, so the general F31 guidance, it says after you've, decided on a dissertation topic, I believe is the wording. It really depends. You want to have enough there for the F31 that you can present a clear idea that you have a developed project, that you have a mentor, right? Often, depending on a graduate program, the first years can be spent on rotations and coursework. So I think it's really sitting down with your mentor and seeing what's an ideal time. Some institutes, you can do the calculation backwards too, like they have a certain cutoff point in terms of amount of funding that they'll support and will not support into your, for us, it's up into your 6th year. So most applicants, I think we see applying is usually in the 3rd year, either maybe the beginning or the end. But a lot of this will take a conversation with your mentor to see what is the timing, when is the timing right, and allowing yourself the knowledge that not everybody gets the application or the grant on the first time of submission. You're in good company. It says nothing about the quality of you not getting the grant on the first try. And so when you're doing that timeline, make sure you're factoring that in so you can get that feedback and then be able to resubmit. I don't know if my colleagues have things to add to that.
Just to and this kind of will tie in some of the questions in the chat. So you're not restricted necessarily by timeline, but you should really consider the best time to apply for this. If you're in your 1st year, it probably is too soon because you probably haven't established a dissertation project. However, say you did your master's work or you did a postbac in that lab. And so you are, by the time you actually get into an actual PhD program, you have a very clear idea of what type of project you want to do. And it's really a question of writing it out. So this is going to be a conversation that I would strongly encourage you to have with your mentor to think about the timing. And it should be the best fit for you and your training goals, right? What you want to get out of this, what you're expecting to do. Again, if you've already gotten sort of a head start in your lab, you may want to apply for the F31 and then you're ready to go for that F99 a little bit later in your dissertation project. So while you're not restricted by eligibility constraints as far as the funding announcements, so are you allowed to apply in your 1st year? yes. But should you? Probably not. But again, that's really up to you. And if you do have questions, I talk with a lot of, I'm the point of contact for the Diversity F31 at NINDS. I'm happy to talk with you, but I'm sure there are program officers at these other institutes that would also be happy to talk with you and see where you are and how you're feeling about it, and give you guidance on the best next steps. We will not tell you, yes, you definitely should or you definitely shouldn't, unless it does seem that you are really a little too green to have a strong enough application that will be judged appropriately.
So let me add one thing there.
Go ahead, Jay.
Well, Ashley and I are probably going to say a very similar thing in that. So right now, this particular webinar is really focused on brain and blueprint. The F31 is an example of a mechanism we don't have. It's absolutely something we're enthusiastic about. But what I will say is that, given the F31 is not a brain or blueprint mechanism, if you ask that question of 10 program officers at 10 different institutes and centers, you will get 11 different answers likely, which means it depends, is really what it comes down to. Because believe it or not, this is going to sound strange on the outside, but the different institutes use the mechanisms differently. Sometimes one is eligible, sometimes one isn't. So the take-home message that I would say for all of these is please, please, please reach out to program staff, as Marguerite said, ahead of time. Have conversations with us. Ashley and I can talk a lot about what NIMH wants or how we use the mechanism, but we wouldn't dare speak on behalf of our colleagues at neurology, for instance, because the mechanisms are used differently. So that's the importance of reaching out to program staff and having an open conversation. Our job is not to say no, it's to try to help figure out how to say yes.
Sounds good. And so we have a question about the K99R00. I don't know, Anna, we can unmute you and you can ask it. There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm in Germany right now, so I'm in the dark. Sorry, my question is about the timing of the K99R00. It's I understand that you're supposed to be kind of almost ready for independence. And I'm wondering if someone is going to be changing postdoc positions to gain additional training, if it's better to kind of I don't know how to put this, to apply early in the postdoc, in the second postdoc, or wait to establish the second postdoc project before applying for a K99R00.
So I can take a stab at this one real quick. I would say that first of all, you're going to want to have a conversation with program staff, and we can help provide some very specific guidance there. It sort of depends upon how divergent that second postdoctoral research is, partly. And part of that reason is because if it's in a completely different area, I mean, you have to be able to convince reviewers that you have some, modicum of operability in that space. And if it's a brand new area, that's going to take some time. I think another part of that as well, that would sort of support the idea of waiting for a little while, is that you really need to show that you're going to have to be competitive. You're going to be competing against other people who have a longer track record. They might have been in that lab for 3 or 4 years, and you have to be able to compete against them. And one of the ways that review is going to look at that is they're going to look at your publication record of doing these types of things. And so there is no necessarily right answer there, but I suspect most people would advise you to sort of wait until you get your feet underneath you to show that you can actually do some of that research, or at least the preliminary aspects, and that the mentoring team actually is functional for you. That's a really important piece.
Yeah, I would just add that, if you think about these transitional mechanisms, the goal is to provide support for you at where that current stage of career, and then help you to fast track to whatever that other stage of career is. So in the case of F99 K00, 1 to 2 years at the postdoc, pre-doc, and then you move to the postdoc. Same for the K99. You're finishing up, it's more finishing up, and then you move to the faculty. And so some of these things aren't negotiable. So say if you're in that second postdoc and it turns out you need 3 years versus the 2 years, no, it's you have to have 1 to 2 years left, and then you're expected to go and to compete for that faculty position. So some of these things is just, like we said, based on timeline and you talking to your mentor about what's realistic. What other questions are in here about?
I have a question. So this is also about the K99, so let's just continue in this vein for a little bit. So this is a question about how another NIH representative said the K99 is for people who are not ready yet for a job. So people who have applied to any job, even without getting an interview, are not encouraged to apply. And so is there, is there an NIH standard line on this, or are there differing opinions?
I would say there's a whole lot of myth busting that we do here as program officers. And I would say that's one of them. That's a myth. And the reason it's a myth is because, you know what, you can apply for a faculty job as an undergrad. It doesn't mean you're going to get the job. Okay, and until you're really that person who's attractive to that institution, has what they're looking for, you're not going to be competitive for it. So you might feel that you're ready for a job, and you might put your toe in the water and apply for a job, and the job market might come back and say, you're not ready. Okay, you need some more time. So for those reasons, I would say that that's definitely a myth.
Yeah. No.
I add just like a little bit. So I do actually hear from an NIH representative, so I'm really surprised, and I actually give up applying because of that. And now I'm really glad to learn that's not the case. But I'm just wondering why, when other people say that, is there just like what Lauren said, is there different opinions in NIH, or different area actually considered as differently?
Yes. So, some things related to that are that if you are on the job market and interviewing and are offered a job and accept a job before a K99 award is made, we wouldn't make that award. Even if you're saying to this job that you're accepting, oh, well, I'm going to be a postdoc for 1 more year before I come. If you are competitive and you got a job, then you don't need the K99, because you don't need that facilitation of your transition to independence. You got the job. Some other institutes, though, are very precise in who they think is the appropriate pool of candidates for these awards. So that's why it's important to talk to the institute where you're going to apply. Because, for instance, one institute I know of, if you're on the job market, or they know you're on the job market and you've been offered interviews, then they wouldn't make an award, because in their opinion, you've already proved you're competitive on the job market if institutions are willing to invite you to interview.
All right, so we're going to take this back to the whole panel. This is a question, I guess, from Angeline and then also Erica. Can you all share your best advice for students applying to an NIH grant for the first time? We'll start with you, Ashley.
Oh, I have so many pieces of advice.
All right, I'm timing you.
I'll give some top ones. One, make sure you contact NIH. That's number one. Please contact us and talk about it. 2, read the funding opportunity announcement, the eligibility, the instructions. Make sure that you're applying for the right thing, that what your work fits with an institute that is supporting it. And 3, try to finish writing early so that you can have lots of people review it, not just your mentors, colleagues, friends. Getting a lot of feedback on your application is really important.
All right, Marguerite, I'm timing you. We know you like to chat.
Anyway, I feel like that is a microaggression. No, just kidding. To follow up on Ashley's point, getting feedback on your application is great, but people telling you what you should and shouldn't do as far as, well, you're not going to be eligible or you're not this, they may not know. So again, talk to us, get the information about whether you are something or not. If you can't figure it out from the funding announcement, talk to a program officer. So often PIs and even staff at universities have the best intentions of telling you, oh, well, my student applied for that, you know, had a similar story to you and they didn't get it, so you're not going to get it. That may have been the case for that one person. And unfortunately, things happen with scientific review. We can't always control for peer reviews, but we can tell you, well, that policy has changed, or actually that's not true at all. So something funky might have happened with this person, but that's not the case. So I think if you have questions about your specific situation, is you had a baby or you adopted a baby, and so some circumstances change, talk to us about your options. Don't always rely on the information secondhand from someone who applied for an F-31 20 years ago.
Thank you.
To older people.
Oh, Jay?
I'm going to take that personal because I applied to one of those 20 years ago. But to my colleagues, I mean, they really knocked it out of the park already. I'll say that. I would say that from our perspective, we invest in people. The science is important. The science has to fit what our institutes are interested in. But we really want to see that strong training potential. So yes, we're all trained as scientists, and we think about aliquoting certain amounts, and we think about all those details, and we oftentimes then forget about the importance that this is a training vehicle. It is a way to help provide you with additional expertise to then set you up to move forward in your career. So don't neglect the importance of the training aspects of this either.
Lauren?
The last word.
No, I'm going to have the last word.
Oh, darn. So I guess I'll kind of go back to the actual question. So the question was, what are the big factors NIH is looking for? And I think that is the wrong question, because number one, these are reviewed by study sections. And so the score that you get is reflective of, a bunch of different scientists that are all going to have their idiosyncratic things that they're looking for. And they have their review questions that they're looking for, but we aren't the ones that actually evaluate your application. So that's one thing, is to really think about who is the audience that is reading this? Who are the people in the study section? And how are you going to tell your story in a way that resonates with them? And then the other part of the question that's wrong is that NIH is looking for something. And so, as you heard Ashley say earlier, there isn't one NIH. I think that's the biggest mistake that trainees make, and something that I completely did not understand as a graduate student is that NIH is a federated model. So if you think about it in terms of the US, you have a federal policy that comes from NIH OD, but then you also have state policy that happens at the level of each individual institute. And things can be very, very different at different institutes. And so I think that's why it's so important to talk to your program officer, is to make sure you understand, what are the programmatic priorities? Are there programmatic priorities? Some ICs like NINDS are very score driven. So, we'll fund up to a certain score and then that's it. Other ICs like NIMH have really specifically articulated scientific priorities, and then maybe they'll fund up to a certain score, and then past that they'll kind of pick and choose based on the scientific priorities. And every IC does things differently, and so that's the most important thing I think to understand from the NIH side, is that you really have to get to know the institute that you're applying to.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just say, the question of what's the best advice for students applying to an NIH grant for the first time? I think it's to apply too. Often I see people talk themselves out of applying, they're not ready, just one more experiment, just one more paper, and what I talked about today was, for some of these mechanisms, there are discrete endpoints in terms of eligibility. And so making sure you're not sort of talking yourself out of applying. I know there's the little devil on the shoulder, especially when it comes to minorities and women, that imposter syndrome monster will rear its ugly head and will feel like, oh, I'm not going to. And the truth is, the only 100% guarantee that you're not going to get an award is if you don't apply, right? And that doesn't mean submit anything, but that means doing all of the advice that the other panelists said in terms of making sure you're putting your best effort forth that is the most competitive, but then apply. Empower yourself to apply. And that means even if you already have some type of funding or some type of support off of something with your mentor or off of the R01, you know, a plug for the podcast again. What we talk about there is that applying for these mechanisms, it's not just about the money. Yeah, the money is great. And of course you want the money at the end, but it also gives you time to sit down and to think about your project, but also have conversations with your mentor or develop mentor teams and do all of this as you're putting the application together that could be beneficial to you, whether or not you end up getting the grant, is the advice that I would give. In terms of, we said this a few times, contact us, contact the program officer. Let's talk about, how do you do that? What does that mean? What are questions that are appropriate to ask and not? Let's start with Ashley again. How do I contact you and what am I saying?
Sure, yeah. So I think lots of people are intimidated by that because people, they hear contact your program officer, and someone without funding, they're like,
who is that?
A program officer? I don't have a program officer. But it's really just about contacting someone at NIH. And there's a few strategies you could use. I'll say a couple and then others can add. One is looking at a funding opportunity announcement that you're interested in. So at the very end of the announcement, it lists a contact, a program contact there. So you can start with that person. Another one, if you're in training, an undergrad or graduate student or postdoc, or looking for a K award, I mean, anyone and then still in the mentored phase, you can Google basically a training office at NIH, and there should be contact information on the Institute's web pages. Or you can ask your mentor who their program officer is and contact that person. I think this doesn't really matter who you find first. We'll help you get to the right person eventually, even if we're not the right ones to start with.
Yeah. Does anybody want to add to that?
I would say exercise a bit of agency. You have to be your own advocate, right? Like, this is what I need from you, or I don't know what I need. Can you help point me in the right direction? But if someone doesn't answer you, or you don't feel like you're getting a satisfactory answer, or maybe it just feels like a very canned response and it doesn't feel helpful in the way that you want it to be, contact someone else. It's okay to contact multiple people to get the information that you need. I think everybody on this call right now from the NIH is happy to point you in the right direction. We will take the time to help sort of figure things out and get you to where you need to be, even if it is not housed specifically with us. So you have to be the advocate. We can't call you by name, look you up, find you, and then say, hey, do you need help putting your F31 together? I see that you're a pre-doc at the University of Iowa and you may need a little bit of extra help. It doesn't work that way. But if you reach out to us and tell us what you need or need help figuring out what you need, we'll help try to point you in the right direction.
Yeah. And should I call you or contact you by email or phone? What should I do, Jay?
Oh, don't you dare call me. Don't call me. You will get ignored. I don't even answer the phone for friends who just randomly call me. No, seriously, send an email, be brief, but also be specific. I would like to apply for a blank mechanism. Can you help me attach specific aims? Even if it's a draft, a very rough draft, you're kind of just sketching things out, attach something that will help us kind of direct you, especially if we're not the right person for you, if we're not the right institute or we don't have the right portfolio, some way for us to identify your scientific area of interest, and then give us some availability of your time, and we will be sure to schedule a time to have a phone conversation.
Yeah, and maybe the one piece, I mean, these are all really great points of reference here. And I'm a bit envious because I wish that when I was an undergraduate or graduate student, I had some of these, points of reference as well. Because I can tell you, when I was even an early stage faculty member, they said, contact your program officer. I was like, oh no, I can't possibly do that. And one of the first things I tell people here is I say, look, I don't have fangs. I'm not going to bite. I am here to help you, okay? You pay me as a taxpayer to work for you. So unless you reach out to us, we can't help you. What I will say as well is that don't be discouraged. Okay, first of all, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30% at most of grant applications get funded. So that's not a great, you know, if you're betting, if you're shooting free throws, you're not very good. Okay, so that's one thing. But two is you're going to find that, you know, on this call right now, I will tell you, you're going to get some of the most enthusiastic people who will reach out to you straight away, no questions asked. But we're all part of that human spectrum. You're going to find some people who you're going to send an email to, and you're going to send an email to, and you're going to send an email to, and they don't get back to you. Okay, I'm sorry for that. There is no excuse for that, but don't give up. Okay, there are people that want to help you.
And so we talked about contacting before, and the next step is I've been reviewed, and now what happens? Is that just it? Or do you recommend that I reach out to a program officer, you know, after it's been reviewed? And if so, when? I'll send that to Lauren.
So the best time to contact your program officer after review is once you have the summary statement in hand. So if you haven't gone through this process before, you know, you'll send your grant off into the ether. You'll wait several months. The review panel will meet, and then they will give you a score, and that's usually released within 24 hours. At that point, we get a lot of emails, and we have nothing to tell you. All we know is the score. We can't really give you any feedback or help you figure out next steps. A couple weeks after you get the score, you'll get a summary statement, which is a summary of the reviewer's critiques. And if your application was discussed, it will also include a summary of the discussion. Even if you were not discussed, that's okay. You should still resubmit. It is still worthwhile. We have plenty of examples of people who went from not discussed to funded on a resubmission. And either way, you can, you know, just contact your program officer, say, hey, my summary statement was released. I'd like to discuss next steps with you. And then we can have that conversation. We'll read the summary statement and sort of help you plan whether you're going to need to resubmit, whether maybe there's a likelihood of getting funded. Maybe you're not eligible anymore, but for that specific mechanism, but you want to take the feedback you got from the summary statement and apply it to your next grant submission. Any of those conversations is appropriate.
Yeah, and the name of the game is resilience. I think that's the other message that we're giving. But then also, there could be things in the summary statement that, you know, maybe the reviewers just didn't understand, or there's some nuance that you wanted to let the program officer know. Having a conversation with them after you receive the summary statement is really important, especially for the way certain ICs do their business in terms of, you know, there's automatic greens, but then there's sometimes things in that we're just not sure how things are going to land. And so having that information about some of the reviewer weaknesses or concerns that were put in that summary statement, that helps us to build a better case for things that could be what we call reachable. So it's really important that you continue the conversation, not only before you submit, but then after you get that summary statement. Are there other questions in here? So Angeline, so what we will do is that we will put these slides with a link, also with the audio of this webinar on either the Brain or the Blueprint page. What we'll do is that everyone who is registered will send that information directly to you so that you'll have it after the meeting.
We had another question. So many of the opportunities addressed were for PhD students and above, but there's an undergraduate wondering what he or she can do to gain exposure and get the necessary prerequisites to prepare themselves for the opportunity when they become a graduate student.
Yeah, I think one of the ways is, as we address the diversity supplement, is an individual way to apply to get a research experience and exposure in a lab. But then NIH as a whole has a lot of summer research opportunity programs that we fund. So programs funded, especially through NIGMS, or what I mentioned, the NIH Blueprint and DOOR are programs. So reaching out at your university or institution to see what opportunities are there for summer research exposure is really important to do. A lot of those programs, like I said, often have more applicants than spots, and that's okay. That could be a plan A. The plan B could be applying, finding one specific mentor that you could then write a diversity supplement with to have a summer research exposure. And then even a plan C is the NIH. We'll say back in the olden days when people were free to roam, we have a summer internship program where you could actually come to our campus and do summer research. So there are a few strategies, and I would say, applying to multiple sort of things to think about is a good strategy, because a lot of people are looking for opportunities.
So let me just add one thing there. I think Michelle has outlined like the laundry list of really great opportunities there. But keep in mind, as an undergrad, you're probably not going to be working on your Nobel Prize at that point in time. So, getting in a lab is the critical thing. And whether it's a chemistry lab, a biology lab, something, getting lab experience is critical. It might not necessarily be in the brain space. I mean, we all love the brain, but maybe it's something else, okay? Maybe it's a reduced application, some other area. Just get your legs underneath you. And oftentimes, universities even have programs in which you can take course credit to do these types of things. There's a lot of different ways to do it that you don't have to necessarily, hey, money's great, money helps support it. I clearly recognize that and we support that, but don't chase the money. Get that experience, and that experience then will lead to additional opportunities as well.
There's a question in terms of what can mentors do or do better to assist their trainees in pursuing funding opportunities, particularly opportunities outside of the PIs I see. Anybody want to take that? I think, just being aware. Are you on mute? Go ahead, Marguerite. No,
I was just telling you I would respond after you're done. I didn't want
I think being aware of what's out there. We realize people don't check our website every day, but signing up to each IC has, a Twitter account. We try to push out the information that way. I shared some of our sort of listservs that you can sign up for, but then in general, signing up for the NIH guide so you can have it come to your mailbox about the latest and greatest in terms of some of these creative or innovative programs that have been developed and now published is a way to do it. I don't know, other thoughts in terms of how a PI does a better job?
I think also involving them in the grant writing process, even for the diversity supplement, I often have the PI have a call with me with their trainee on the line to get that, sort of the mentor is introducing them to how you talk to a program officer. And sometimes, especially if you're shy or, maybe I don't want to put this on introverts, but maybe you just don't really have you're not really sure how to create those conversations in a social way, sometimes going through your mentor. So I think mentors often, if you can empower your student to get the information that they need, having their own questions, like, hey, do you have any questions? Would you like to start out, or should I start? I think modeling that behavior can be very helpful and give students the opportunity, especially students the opportunity to then reach out on their own. I had a mentor do that once and say, you said that you could help them with their biosketch. Would you be willing to, talk with them? And I said, sure, you can introduce us. You can give them my email, however. And this student reached out to me. We had a very nice conversation. And at the end of the conversation felt much more empowered than at the very beginning. So I think also sometimes if you show them how to fish, then they can then fish for themselves.
Very good. The next question I want to get in, and we get this a lot, is examples. Someone had asked about, I don't know if this is, well, we don't provide examples, but I guess somehow they've seen examples of K99s and F32s, and they were wondering, were there online examples of successful diversity supplements at the post-bac level? I don't know if anybody, you want to talk about that, Ashley?
Sure. As Michelle said, we don't provide examples at NIMH either. I think most institutes don't have examples of any grants or supplements, especially for the diversity supplements, though. Those are reviewed at each IC individually, and different ICs or ICs as an institute of the NIH. So, you know, it depends on the area of research that you're conducting, and the grant that's being supported that would be supplemented by the diversity supplement. So it's important to contact the program officer of that specific grant and talk to them about what is expected in an application, because it could differ across NIH, and you want to make sure that the application you're putting together is going to be the strongest possible. But, you know, for examples, you could ask your institution. They may have examples that they could share with you.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, I know the spirit in which people are coming from, especially if you've never done it before and you're reading the FOA and the language can be overwhelming and you're like, well, what are all these forms? I just need to see, like, what is this supposed to look like? And so I would say NIAID does offer some examples of, you know, format and structure, and maybe somebody can put that in the chat, but you want to be really careful, because this is really about you and your training and your career development. And so you can sometimes fall into the trap of just trying to plug in you into someone else's structure, and it may not even make sense for the project that you have or for, you know, your specific research area. Like, nobody talks about it like that. And so I would just caution, we understand the desire to have examples, but you have to make sure that you are making this your own. And then also realizing that you should not be doing this alone. Your mentor, who has years of experience of going through this, should be helping you. And to Ashley's, you know, maybe initial point where she talked about allowing yourself enough time that you can, you know, take it through maybe even a formalized group at your institution, or if you don't have a formalized group, maybe setting up your own sort of group where people can look at it and offer feedback and say, you know, is this understandable? Does this make sense? So yeah, I would say, yes, look at examples for structure and maybe, oh, this made it sound really clear, but maybe you can do that internally by just getting a group of other peers together, or people that have, you know, near peers who have done this, and sort of looking them over, but making sure you always make your application individual to you. I don't know if anybody else wants to. Go ahead, Lauren.
I'll just follow up on that. I mean, I think you said it really well, but I've seen examples where, like, the format is copied, but the effect of the application is not successful. It's just not effective. And so it's really, there's many different ways to accomplish the goal of telling your scientific story, your training story. There isn't a magic format that makes it work. It's the content that makes it work. And so you know, just to reiterate what Michelle said, that getting outside eyes and really thinking about, like, have I accomplished communicating what I want to communicate and said everything that needs to be said, is more important than, you know, oh, did I structure with 4 training goals or 5 training goals? That's much less important and is going to depend on your specific situation.
So I told you, and I already warned you, we love talking about what we do. And so I'm just looking at the time. We got carried away, and we want to be respectful of your time. Hopefully, you know, thank you to Angeline and Brielle for organizing this. Hopefully this isn't the last you hear of us. We're thinking about having, you know, more touch points where we can have these types of conversations, and we would love, love, love for you to come back. So we want to be respectful of your time this time. Remember, you have our contact information. We're going to follow up with these slides, and just know that we want to see you applying for these funding opportunities, and hopefully you feel empowered and encouraged to do so. Thank you for coming today.